What's going on, guys? K-Pine here and welcome back. And in this video, I'll be featuring an extremely strong team in what I believe to be an amazing meta, the Fantasy Cup. Flygon, Azumarill, and Ferrothorn. In the 10 sets I played with this team, I went positive in every single set. The Flygon and Azucore is just an extremely strong one, and then the Ferro is to hard counter the fairies that Flygon is weak to. But most importantly, it's to hard punish Azu, which is everywhere, and one of, if not the most common safe swap out there. I mean, yeah, there's not much more to say other than this team puts in work. And with that, let's get right to the battles. Alright, against the first battle, we lead Flygon into Azumarill. This is a very specific way to play out this matchup. You're going to want to throw 7 mud shots and then go for the Scorching Sands. This will be before they reach an Ice Beam or a Play Rough, and you guaranteed get to land that move. And then I like to throw one more mud shot and then swap it to my Azumarill, because most Azus are going to be throwing that one more bubble to try and throw on good timing. And in that sequence, if your opponent isn't very patient, Azumarill is often able to catch an Ice Beam or a Play Rough, which is great waste of energy for their Azu because it's not on your Flygon. But here, this is one big reason why I'm running Hydro Pump on my Azu. If you safe swap your Azu and you're on Play Rough and Ice Beam, you're just going to get absolutely walled by steel types. So by having Hydro Pump, that gives you the play against Alolan Sandslash, Registeel, other steels like that to absolutely nuke it with the Hydro and give you an opportunity to flip switch. As you'll see here, since I did land that Hydro, I probably could have survived that draw run, but I decided to shield it up just to preserve health onto my Azu and to guarantee I can get switch advantage here. As you'll see, they have a Lucario, so I'll be able to get both 2 shields from them with the double Play Roughs from the Azu, and they're not able to farm me down. They have to go for a Thunder Punch to take me out, which they do. And now from here, I have the alignment I want, right? I only go for the Dragon Claw here because I know this would be the CMP tie. The Azu left with a move stored, so I was worried that if I overfarmed, the Lucario could get a shield with the Shadow Ball, and then they could combo play with the Azu. So I thought about, hey, Lucario's very glassy. If I just CMP tie to that Dragon Claw, I don't have to worry about the combo play. Plus, the Lucario will be low enough where my Ferrothorn will be able to handle it if needed, especially since it's such a dominant matchup against the Azu. GG's. Next battle, Flygon Lead. Load up on energy here in this matchup. You can throw right away, you can throw a couple mud shots after, it doesn't matter. Most Flygons don't swap out into this when you get to the first Dragon Claw in the mirror match. But as you'll see here, I like to stay in, shield their first Dragon Claw, go for the Dragon Claw, and then swap on what would be the CMP tie to the next Dragon Claw into my Azu. More often than not, you will be able to catch this move onto your Azu and completely waste their energy, which is fantastic because it gives your Flygon more potential to sweep an endgame. Now here, my opponent makes a smart play. They rebank that Dragon Claw for later and bring in an Empoleon. But the good news is we already wasted a Dragon Claw from them, and by them staying in to rebank the move onto their Flygon allows me to get a bit of a bubble head start, and that bubble head start allows me to land a Play Rough and potentially a Hydro Pump if I wanted to. But you know what, I decide to bank that move instead and swap it to my Flygon, knowing I'll reach that Scorching Sands on the CMP tie to the Empoleon to take it out. If they come back in with their Flygon here, that's perfectly fine because I can shield this up, go for the Dragon Claw of my own to get their final shield, and I have basically a Hydro Pump stored on my Azu, and that energy is going to go a long way, added to the fact that I have a full health Ferrothorn. So they do play to the CMP tie here, and they will be able to take out my Flygon. And now here, instead of bringing in Azu, because they do have a Dragon Claw banked, and I was worried that I might go down to the Dragon Claw if they throw right away, I bring in the Ferrothorn to take that energy. But what do you know? They have that Azu in the back, which is oh so common, and Ferro shuts it down so they concede. GG's. Next battle, we lead Flygon into Shadow Empoleon. Now this is a very bait dependent matchup. You can win the 0 shield and 1 shield scenario going straight Scorching Sands. But if you want to win the 2 shield scenario, you are going to have to bait with a Dragon Claw at some point, as otherwise the Empoleon can Steel Wing you down. And here, this Empoleon actually somehow wins CMP. That must be like an extremely high attack weighted Empoleon, because Flygon is almost guaranteed to win that CMP tie. But they end up calling my Dragon Claw bait, which is even worse. It's a little risky, right? If you go for the Scorching Sands there, you pick up the knockout. They call a Dragon Claw bait, and then it just feels bad. And I end up swapping into baking that, storing some energy onto my Flygon, and then swapping into my Azu. Especially since they called that Dragon Claw bait and win CMP against me. If my own Flygon won CMP tie, I probably still would have stayed into that matchup, just because I could force CMP against them to their next move, and then let my Flygon go and come in and Bullet Seed down with Ferrothorn. But like I said, since they won CMP, that's why I swapped into my Azu. And now they bring in a Force Palm Lucario, and these are chunking the Pharaoh. And I'm in a very tough position here. I go for the Thunder, not really expecting them to shield the Lucario, but what do I know? They do end up giving up that shield, and now I'm in a very tough position. But since they have Thunder Punch, as we'll see right here, I think I'm in a good spot, because I go, okay, that Thunder Punch, Shadow Ball, I will be able to load up on energy, you know, maybe get to a move against their Empoleon or farm it down in time. But they're on Thunder Punch and Power Up Punch, and those Force Palms do so much damage. And that one Force Palm I took puts me in Steel Wing down range, as my opponent is able to take it. GG's. Next battle, we lead Flygon into Turtonator. Fantastic lead for us, and we will be going Scorching Sands in this matchup, throwing it after 7 Mud Shots. You don't really want to bait in the Turtonator matchup, just because you outpace it easily going straight Scorching Sands, and behind basically every single Turtonator lead is an Azumarill. They save swap the Azumarill, and this is what Ferrothorn is meant to do. You want to throw your Power Whip right away to take advantage of your desynced fast moves, so they don't deny you a Bullet Seed potential. But I like to land a Power Whip, load up to 2 Power Whips, and normally I'll take out the Azu on that Power Whip right there after I load up to the back-to-back. But since they have a Turtonator, I want them to land another Ice Beam. So this Turtonator only gets 1 Incinerate of damage, but my opponent reads that and makes a very nice play. And they undercharge their Ice Beam, so they're still able to get 2 Incinerates. But either way, even with those 2 Incinerates, we're in a pretty decent spot because of that chip damage that the Ferrothorn was able to put onto the Turtonator. It's now in Dragon Claw range, so I can go for Dragon Claws instead of Scorching Sands, and they have a Dedenne in the back. And this is kind of a little bit of a core breaker for the remaining 2 Pokemon I have on my team. It will I will at least be able to force 2 shields with my Flygon, which is nice. And here I go for a little bit of a risky bait. They shielded the first Scorching Sands, so I'm predicting they will shield that Dragon Claw. And from here, this should just be game over, because if you go for a Scorching Sands and then a Claw, you reach your next Scorching Sands after 5 Mud Shots, which I do right there, and Flygon wins CMP over Dedenne. But I thought it was still 6 Mud Shots away at that moment, so I swapped to Catch, and that essentially brings an instant win into still a pretty good situation, but it opens up the door just a tad for the opponent. As here they hard swap in their Turtonator, but realistically, them doing that just seals the win for me as well, because I can let my Azu get as low as possible, so the Dedenne gets as little as farm as possible, and then I can just land that Scorching Sands that I had stored. GG's. Next battle, Flygon into another Turtonator. See what they're gonna do, and just like clockwork, they swap into that Azu. So like I mentioned in the previous battle, you want to throw this Power Whip right away. So you want to throw first and not let the Azu throw first for the chance for them to deny you a Bullet Seed. And this match actually occurred before my last match, so you'll see me load up all this energy, and then I don't undercharge the Power Whip enough. This still takes out the Azu, you want to play it like how I did in the previous matchup with that undercharge. So it gives the Azu a chance to land that second move to only give the Turtonator 1 Incinerate of damage instead of 2. But either way, we do get some nice Thunder chip damage onto the Turtonator, and then 2 Mud Shots, and then the Dragon Claw for good timing. And that Thunder chip damage doesn't quite put it in Dragon Claw range yet, but after you add the Mud Shots together throughout these different shielding scenarios and matchups, it does put it into Dragon Claw range. In the back, they have a Skarmory, and I want to let them throw first. If they Brave Bird, they Brave Bird, but they're not going to Brave Bird. If they Brave Bird, these bubbles and charge moves will just do enough to be able to get rid of their Skarmory, and they need their Skarmory around to be able to beat my Flygon specifically. So we do end up full sending the Hydro Pump that does get shielded. That's perfectly fine because I can just save my shield for Flygon, and this game is going to be an easy win. So we do land a Play Rough. Now they swap into a Turtonator, and here I make a terrible mistake. I thought they were still 1 more Incinerate off from their move, and this turns an instant win into 1. That's going to be very, very tough. I need to leave a 2 moves for the Skarmory. So I can't quite get the Mud Shot down. So I need to undercharge that Dragon Claw there, leave with 100, basically 100 energy, 1 Mud Shot off 100 energy. And here the Skarmory's at the move. So we land the Scorching Sands. We have the Dragon Claw. And we get the perfect undercharge to make up for our mistake earlier, so we can still win that match with the CMP tie over Skarmory. GG's. Next battle, Flygon into Ferrothorn. So just like in Azumarill Lead, we want to throw the Scorching Sands after 7 Mud Shots for good timing. Scorching Sands will most likely land against the Ferrothorn, and I do like to shield the first Power Whip the Ferrothorn throws against the Flygon, because it allows us the potential to, well, we'll outpace this next Scorching Sands if we throw right away, but we don't. We want to throw on good timing, and we kind of expect our opponent to throw on good timing here. But the reason why we shield their first Power Whip is just in case we get the attack drop from the Scorching Sands. We unfortunately don't get the attack drop from the Scorching Sands here, so we can let their Power Whip go, and we'll be able to make it to another Scorching Sands. But as you'll see here, my opponent swaps into that Azu. And what do you know? Another Azu safe swap. We have our Ferrothorn to shut it down. And that last matchup, that lead matchup with the Flygon into the Ferrothorn, is one big reason why I do like running the regular over the Shadow. While the Shadow helps a lot for situations with the Dragon Claw against the other dragons, or Azumarill going straight Scorching Sands, for example, the extra bulk that regular Flygon gets is very, very nice. So it's kind of a give and take in each situation. So we are able to land that Power Whip. We undercharge it just a little against the Azu so we can get the Bullet Seed down and get some extra energy, which we land the Thunder onto the Ferrothorn, and they have their own Flygon in the back, so Azu's just going to be able to clean this up. We showed the first move. They're not going to bait an Azumarill on the first move in that matchup. If they do, it's an absolutely insane bait. But we get the call correctly as to go for the Scorching Sands. And as long as we throw in on good timing, through that Play Rough on good timing, we will be able to outpace this Flygon to this Play Rough before they reach a 3rd Scorching Sands. I'm not even sure if a 3rd Scorching Sands would knock out there. Yeah, it looks like Azu would just be able to hang on, but just in case, we are able to take it out with the Play Rough and then bubble down the Ferro. GG's. Next battle, we lead Flygon into Goodra. So we're going to swap into our Azu after we go for a Dragon Claw here. This is going to do some very nice chip onto the Goodra or force a shield from them. And it does force a shield, which is very nice because this puts it, because Play Rough from an Azu does more than a Dragon Claw from a Flygon, from a non-shadow Flygon. So that's very, very nice for us that they gave up a shield there. And we do end up baiting out Dedenne. A little unfortunate. We would have loved to see the Dedenne lined up against our Ferrothorn, but we have Hydro Pump, which does massive damage to the Dedenne. And since that landed, I can shield this discharge and make a play for switch. So now I'm able to put the Ferrothorn onto the Goodra. And whether the Goodra is running the standard Aqua Tail Thunder Punch, or they're running Aqua Tail Power Whip, or even Aqua Tail Draco Meteor for that matter, their entire moveset is walled by our Ferrothorn, which is very, very nice. Now they come in with a Berserker, and the Berserker gets the perfect farm down, so this is so much trouble for us. I bring in my Pharaoh just to kind of sack it here. If they go for the close combat, then so be it. The Goodra is probably just going to Dragon Breath down my Flygon anyways if they land that, but they don't. They go for Foul Play, so maybe they're on Foul Play Trailblaze or Foul Play Play Rough. Foul Play Play Rough seems like will be the more likely move combination here, since you're going straight for the Foul Plays, and that actually helps a lot as we're able to land that move and we get the snipe on our Flygon, so their Berserker goes down with a ton of energy. But this is still going to be an uphill battle, as we are able to land the Dragon Claw, but now we're going to have to make it to a Power Whip before the Goodra reaches 2 moves. We're 1 Bullet Seed off. We need to hope there's still a couple more Dragon Breaths away, but they had the back-to-back Aqua Tails. And despite the bad lead with the Goodra, we were able to make that one pretty close. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Flygon into Escav. Now this is another bait dependent situation. You can go for the Scorching Sands, you can go for the Dragon Claw. It's a very tough call here, and it's one you have to make, because Scorching Sands is basically going to one-shot Escav because of how glassy it is. But so it kind of puts them into a situation to respect it, but then if you get a Scorching Sands shielded, it's kind of tough because the counter's chunk. Plus, when they bait you with an acid spray, it's not great. So we end up getting the Dragon Claw bait correct. So we're going to double down on that Dragon Claw bait. We get their second shield, and now we're going to swap into our Azu. The Escav would be able to counter down my Flygon before I made it to a Scorching Sands. So we want to reset that acid spray debuff to potentially allow us to make it to a Scorching Sands in the end game there. So we swap into our Azu. We only go for the Play Rough there because it will do enough chip damage to put their Escav in farm down range later. So Play Rough lands, they swap out, bring in their own Azu. And now here, I'm going to try and stall my Switch Clock. I want to keep my Azu alive. So I'll land 1 Play Rough. And we're able to stall the Switch Clock just enough to keep the Azu alive and healthy. And I think 1 bubble off another Play Rough, which is very nice. Because while they're switch locked in here, I can just farm up energy on my Ferrothorn. And this energy on Pharaoh is going to go a long way. We do play to the CMP tie. This won't quite take out the Azu. Or does. Sorry. My bad. It takes out the Azu. And now we're 1 Power Whip, 1 Bullet Seed away from the next Power Whip. And my opponent brings in a Flygon. I was expecting them to come in with Escav there so they could get a little bit counter chip damage. Or throw their own Drill Run that they have stored. And then force me to dump my Power Whip onto the Escav. But them coming into the Flygon's interesting because we're able to land that Power Whip onto the Flygon. Then we shield the Scorching Sands, knowing that Scorching Sands does more than the Drill Run. Swap to our Flygon, we get the Mud Shot down, and we make it to a Dragon Claw. Even if it was a simul KO there, my Azu had a move stored still, or was 1 off it, so we were in a very good position. GG's. Next battle, we lead Flygon into Lucario. Now, this is kind of a similar situation to that of an Empoleon Lead or an Escav Lead, where it's very bait dependent here. But the good news is Lucario is the most glassy out of the 3 of those. So they're basically going to shield every single move you have for the Flygon. And given that, Dragon Claw still does a lot of damage if they call it as a Dragon Claw. So honestly, it's fairly safe just to go straight Dragon Claw in that matchup. But oh no, my opponent makes a catch of the Dragon Claw onto their Azu. What am I gonna do? Well, I'm gonna bank up to the double Dragon Claw and then send in the Ferrothorn. This is exactly what it's here for. Doesn't matter how much energy the Azu gets on it. Ferrothorn tanks it and shrugs it off, no problem. So, and those double Dragon Claws can potentially put in so much work in this end game here, just because it's a Flygon. The move, stab Dragon Claw hits so hard from it. They will reach a second move from their Azu here, but that's perfectly fine. We will be able to get to the back-to-back Power Whips, where we can take out the Azu with this Power Whip, and we leave with a move stored. see what they want to come in with. If they come in with the Lucario, we're going to fire off the Power Whip right away. And this is Lucario. It's extremely glassy, and that's a resisted move. And it still takes out the Lucario. It's crazy how much damage moves do to Lucario. They have a Wigglytuff in back. And now this is a fairly decent spot for us to be in. Here, I go for the Play Rough right away, expecting them to potentially go for to shield that and then potentially go for an Icy Wind to drop my attack. But if you're running Hydro Pump, the smarter play here is, and since they shielded that Play Rough, I could let it go just in case it is the Icy Wind bait, and still make the Hydro. But if you're running Hydro Pump and you're in the one shield scenario against the Wigglytuff, the safer play is to just go straight Hydro Pump. Because even if they do get that Icy Wind debuff, you will outpace to the second Hydro Pump before they reach a second move. So it's just a lot safer to do. GG's. Next battle, Flygon into an Empoleon. We know how this lead goes. You either bait or nuke. The last one called my Dragon Claw bait, so we're going to double down on it again and go for the bait, and we do get the shield, which is very fortunate for us. And my opponent overfarms too much and allows me to reach the Scorching Sands. So that's brilliant. So now I can force both shields from them before they force one shield from me. And as a matter of fact, since I do get both shields from them, I'm going to let my Flygon go and just come in with the Ferrothorn. But they undercharge. They do successfully snipe with the Goodra before I get to another Dragon Claw, which is a little bit unfortunate. But that's fine. We can bring in our Azu here, and then watch this. We land that Play Rough, and then we send in our Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn walls Goodra's entire moveset, like I mentioned earlier, so we can go for an extremely aggressive Bullet Seed down here against the Goodra. They will land one Thunder Punch, will land one Aqua Tail, and they will reach one more Aqua Tail right before we get the farm down, but that is perfectly fine. We leave this matchup with 100 energy, and we just soaked and wasted all of that energy from the Goodra. Now they come in with the Turtonator, and this is just game over. This is an easy dub. We land the Thunder, and then we go for the Power Whip. Against Turtonator, you want to go for the Thunder. Thunder's single resisted, while Power Whip is double resisted. So if you're only going to reach one move, you want to go for the Thunder there. And then with that chip damage and a 2-shield Azu, there's no way we can lose this game. I do shield the Dragon Pulse from the Turtonator, just in case it was the overheat. I didn't want to potentially put myself in a situation where the Empoleon could still wing down, but we are still healthy enough where we can land that Hydro Pump, the bubble goes through, takes out the Empoleon, and now this is just game over. We do make it to the Play Rough. This will land on the Turtonator and take it out. GG's. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, in the 10 sets I ran with this team, I went positive in every single one. So besides this being a very strong team, it's also a very fun one to use with it being based around Flygon. So if you're looking for a good Fantasy Cup team to make a push or reach any goals before the season comes to an end in like a month, 5 weeks, somewhere around there, I can highly recommend this one. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.